Hey everyone, welcome back to Made Possible by Pop Culture. We're going to get into today's episode in just a second, but before we do, I feel like I may need to apologize to my guest or at least offer a little bit of additional context in this introduction. So, Emily Pendergast is one of the stars of Jury Duty Company Retreat. She's my guest today, obviously, that's why I'm saying this. On that show, she stole scenes as Amy Patterson, the Rockin' Grandma's hot sauce employee who got proposed to. She rejected that guy, and then she hooked up with another fake coworker. Emily's phenomenal in the series, so if you haven't checked it out yet, please do so now. It's on Prime Video. All episodes plus the reunion are streaming. And we're going to get into some spoiler territory on this episode, so be warned about that. But the reason I feel this needs an apology or maybe some additional context is because the premise of Jury Duty is to put a regular person into a completely fake scenario with a bunch of actors to test his character. And yes, his, because over the 2 seasons so far, both heroes have been male. But on one hand, I'm thrilled Emily got this show and this role because she nailed it. On the other hand, it still baffles me how they don't put characters in outrageous disguises, maybe minus Alex this season, whose hair did make him seem like a different person, because the heroes somehow don't raise suspicions or flat out say, hey, aren't you? And recognize their brilliant bodies of work. For example, Emily's credits include everything from White House Plumbers and the Connors to Miracle Workers, the donor party from my previous guest, Tom Harp, Leanne, Descendants, and of course, VEEP. So that's where I personally want to apologize to you, Emily, for the fact that you were not recognized initially by Anthony at the top of the season as a great actor. But obviously, you're getting that due now, so hopefully it makes up for it. And obviously, I want to thank you for coming on Made Possible by Pop Culture to talk about this show. So I'd like to start there with you, if it's possible, to talk a little bit about that casting process, how it went for you, especially in regards to like whether they actually did discuss making you look totally different once you got the job.
Well, thank you so much. That intro is
It
the
was long. I'm
kindest.
like sweating.
No, are you kidding? Well, you nailed it. One take wonder. That was very kind. Thank you. The casting process was like everything, like, so many things now is a like self-tape and then almost like a chemistry read with some mix and match cast members. And once I got there, I spoke with Jake, the director, who's incredible. And just kind of talking about like any more ideas for Amy Patterson. And in that time, Kamala was making a resurgence, was running. So Veep was making a resurgence in that. And I just remember seeing like headlines that were like, people that never watched Veep are watching Veep now. And so, we talked about like what Amy's vibe is, and I've never had adult bangs, and so like a lot of bang decision making is, I think it was pretty rash, and we're like, chop them, let's do it. And so I went to Flo, was the incredible the key hair person on our show, and just chopped my bangs. And because I didn't know what I was going to look like, I do Groundlings sketch and improv, so I'm in main company there, so I have like horrendous character work of like just like crazy wigs, like holding like a tall boy in character. And the Amazon was like, what do you look like in bangs? And I was like, I have these pictures. So I was sending like the most insane pictures from backstage and on stage of me in bangs. They're like, looks good. So, but it really helped get into character.
Okay. I mean, I will say I still knew who you were immediately with the banks. And so, I always like to give the caveat of like, okay, listen, I do this for a living, but I do this for a living because I was the person that was doing it before I could do it professionally. Like I would recognize everybody before there was an IMDb, people would come to me and be like, who is this person? So maybe that is not common, but it feels like on this show, the more time you spend with each other, and certainly the more time you spend with Anthony, like he's spending a lot of time just looking at you, talking to you. Seems like such a genuine person that he's making real eye contact. Did it get dicey? Did he even, not that he would say like, "Oh, you're the one from Veep," but like,
Right.
"Hey, you're starting to remind me of someone." Do those moments happen?
I think they didn't happen. And also, the Alexis who does that like groundwork there, that just blows my mind of how they can find these lightning in a bottle people. And I think they're very confident that they have not seen things, and I don't know exactly how it works, like whether it's like, an application for a job that's like, hey, do you watch these TV shows? Just
Because
a
that also
question.
would be a giant red flag.
Truly,
Because then it's
yeah.
like, well, now I have those thoughts in my head, and maybe I've
Right.
looked them up, and maybe now
Yeah.
I'm recognizing somebody I would not have before.
Right. And so, I never felt like, uh-oh, maybe he'll know us from that. But it was a worry, I think, until we got to the retreat because so many members of the cast were in like current commercials. And so
Right.
because we started at the office for
Hmm.
2 days and then we had that weekend off, and then the retreat started on Monday. So I think in those like weekend days, we're like, oh, he's going to be at the like his hotel, like could go to like restaurants with TVs. And Mark Sully, who's plays
Hmm.
PJ, they were on like a million progressive commercials that ran like every 2 seconds. And we were like, oh man, this might happen. But then we were all like, oh, it would make sense if PJ was like, yeah, I tried it. I tried acting.
That's true. I
So
mean,
we were
for
like,
some of you
right.
guys, yeah, there's a simple like, explanation, I guess.
Yes.
Um, okay,
But once
so
we were at the retreat and did like the phone detox, the digital detox, there was no way to continue going like,
right,
wait, that person does look familiar. Let me like reverse image Google search.
right. So I mean, you
Yeah.
mentioned obviously like the bangs were helpful in getting into character for Amy. I want to talk a little bit about those bracelets
Great.
because it started out in the beginning of the season where it felt like she's going to be such a Swiftie that's going to come up so much, but then it
Mm.
didn't feel overwhelming. It didn't feel like you guys went as far as maybe you could have. And I'm wondering how much of that was cut because maybe people thought it was too far, or you just were like, no, 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 I don't want to talk about Taylor Swift that much.
Well, I'll love to talk about her because I would not have identified myself as a Swiftie beforehand.
Mhm.
Love Taylor Swift. You have to be living under a rock to not know what a powerhouse that woman is. But I saw it in the character breakdown. And so my niece, Eva, and my sister, Missy, definitely identify as Swifties. And so I called them and I was like, I need you to tell me 15 facts that every Swiftie knows, and you cannot tell me why, or you can't ask why. I can't tell you. And my niece, Eva, and Missy made like this Google Doc that was just like sharing it. So in the office, I would just like study things. And so I think the bracelets always helped get into character. So, because I mean, just like fully weighted down with them. I felt like I was wearing like Pilates weights.
Yeah.
And so that helped a ton. There wasn't a ton of like Taylor Swift moments in the script itself, but just more so I was like, this helps me tap right in. And what you don't see is my talent that I worked very hard on in the
Hmm.
talent show was I made friendship bracelets in under
Oh,
90 seconds while rambling off Taylor Swift facts.
I thought you were going to say that you worked on one of her songs and that you sang and they couldn't clear
Nobody
it, and
wants
that's
that.
why it's not in the show.
No,
Okay.
nobody needs to hear me sing.
I
But
mean, I didn't say you didn't have to sing well. It was a talent show
that's
for a
true.
fake hot sauce company. These people are not going to be Sia. That's why Sia was brought in.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, I like looped a friendship bracelet, like a bunch of yarn on my toe, and did a 1 foot like friendship bracelet because I was just making
Amazing.
people in the cast friendship bracelets. Like I was either coloring or doing that or in seminars.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. I like that a lot
Yes.
to get a sense of like it was there, we just didn't have time for it.
Yep, totally.
When you look at it felt like once they knew, and I know you knew this from the script point of view, but like once they knew your character was going to be the one that was like embarking on the office romance, even though it wasn't the one that we thought it might be at the start of the show, how much did you feel like you needed to set that up? Like with little looks and like little things between you guys before you get to the like actual drunken makeout that Anthony needs to stumble upon. Is it funnier, in your opinion, to have it come out of nowhere or to kind of say, no, there's something brewing here. We want to make this feel real?
I think there was more seating for me and Kevin, Ryan. And so like
Yes, I did
Ryan
catch
and
that you
Kevin.
said
Oh
I
my
love
God.
you as you walked out of the room. I was like, oh
Yes.
no, we don't do that at work.
I know, to the HR person.
Right? Well,
But yeah. And so there was more seating, I think, for that because he had to kind of think that we were dating so that there would be this proposal.
True. True.
um, and Amy definitely is that, like, says I love you to everyone, hugs everyone. Like, even every single seminar teacher, like, there's so much footage, but every single seminar teacher, I would hug them high and I'd hug them bye, like
Mhm.
just full on strangers. And so just like this kind of very bubbly, outgoing, inviting energy. And so there wasn't a ton going because I also didn't want to tip it,
Yeah.
and we wanted it to really seem like that insane striptease really got me and was like, that's my man.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
insane, but I would argue that your romance storyline is not as insane as the one in season one, which I was like, I don't know how at that point we didn't just tap out and be like, this isn't real.
Wild. Wild.
So
I know.
I will say, I think they did a good job, and you guys did a really good job of, yes, this feels real. It feels a little bit nutty, but it feels like it could happen. You're sequestered in this weird place. You have a history with each other. You already had that
Yes.
weird bucket list. Maybe this was something on your bucket list. Who knows?
I know. And it's even, I mean, they think of everything, the producers, the creators, the writers. I mean, God, it's just a murderer's row of talent. And because, it's, which also like I didn't even catch, and I was like, good job, Emily. I put go to a strip club on my bucket
Hmm.
list, and then he strips for me, and I'm like, oh, you guys think of everything. um, but yeah, it was more just like really, I think we didn't want to make it seem like we were anything because we wanted it to be that spur of the moment and that hookup, because then afterwards, like we start sitting next to each other, like we're
Hmm.
next to like each other in seminars.
Right.
I would be much more disheveled every morning after that because I'd be coming from his room. So yeah.
And there was that moment too where then you have to like declare your relationship to HR, which you already talked about you're from the Groundlings, so you obviously have a great improv background. Is that an area where you are allowed to improv with Rob and um in terms of like maybe even one-upping each other on like how much we're saying to try to get reactions? Or how do you play that line? How did you decide how to play that line of like, well, we want to be funny, but we can't break? Or can you actually, let me also add this. After we talk about that, I do want to talk about if you can break on a show like this, because like you're
Mm-hmm.
just playing real people and real people laugh at each other all the time.
Totally. Yes. And I think the second time, if you watch it, if you focus, we break more than you probably realize
Okay.
because
Yeah. I
we
was like,
like
I
it
feel
was
like
like
there
a
were some little
notepad.
things, but not like
Yes.
full on, I'm laughing at you.
No, totally. And so so the HR scene, knowing that that was also coming up, I mean, Rob and I would like scurry away and be like, I got your back, like whatever you need, but also at that point, it's so wild to have such trust in someone that you don't even know their real life name. Like I was like, other
Oh,
Anthony, I
right.
got you, and so I'm like, whatever you need. And we had to play it very earnestly. And that is my favorite type of like comedy or performance, is like a heightened earnestness, I think is
Mhm.
always going to be the best. And so I think if we were going for the joke, the situation itself was already so wildly
Right.
heightened. And it's like in this quiet room and there's no cameras. Like that's where it was all hidden
Right.
cameras in that one. And just I mean, that scene was probably 45 minutes long. Like we were in there for a really long time. Like at one point I was talking about speaking of Google Docs, I was like, Rob and I had a shared document of
Hmm.
like do's and don'ts, and like my do's were long. So like we were really getting into the weeds of like and it all was presented in a way of like we just want to make sure we're doing this right and like we don't get in
Right.
trouble.
Okay. But
And
even in
Kev,
that earnestness, like it felt to me like your character especially had this element of like sometimes she says things that are just funny. And so like maybe you're not trying to go for the joke, but you can land something in a way that another character can't, or that in a normal work environment you can't.
right, yes, I think so. And also, kind of playing of like, okay, what can we get away with right
Right.
now too? And I have, Jake in my ear, which is great, and in my earwig, and Kevin Ryan has an earwig for him
Right.
too. And so like even just down to if Rob ended up leaning closer to me, but I knew that there was a camera between us behind this mirror
Sure.
that needed to get Anthony, like I'd have to like push him to the side and lean over. So kind of just keeping a million plates in the air to you're forced to just play it for real because you're like, I have to just like I have to keep all of these, ducks in a row. And I think that is what was so fun about Amy is like she's like enthusiastically ignorant.
That's a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, yes.
Yeah. Because
And that
there were a
she
few things that you got to say that I was like, ooh,
yes.
she sounds a
Like
little
what? Oh my
young.
God, tell me,
Yeah.
please. Yes.
I mean, I don't want to call anybody out. I don't know who wrote what, but I mean, there were definitely even a few things the way that she would be like, should I put that on my bucket list? Like, I feel like
Yes.
you're saying it because you know it's a joke and it's funny, but to think like,
Yes.
oh no, someone thinks this is a real person saying, should I put that on a bucket list? And Anthony just
Right.
like, no. You like, I think there was a cocaine option at one point, and
Yeah.
I was just
There was
like,
cocaine. Yeah.
you wouldn't say that to your coworkers. You wouldn't say that in
I
that environment.
Yeah, I know. It's like you kind of, when you go off campus of work, you kind of get away with a lot. And also with it being a family business too, like
Mm,
there were so many times
that's a good point.
people like our own cast members, if we would like have like a moment, they're like, how does Amy still have a job? It's like I think Doug just likes me. Like I think I'm like a
It's small.
daughter.
Small
Yeah.
business. I mean, that is a
Yes.
good point. There are a lot of things. I mean, obviously in season one, because it was a jury, it was different because none of those actors playing characters that were supposed to be fooling Ronald in that scenario, like, were supposed to have any sort of backstory with each other. And so this one, the idea that like you can get away with a little bit more because they've had this history, they know and like each other. That's also what kind of threw me a minute. I did expect like you're a workplace, you're kind of a small workplace, you're going in this secluded place. How is there no drama between? And I mean, we know there was some in the past, like characters that have had to like change their ways and whatever, but that
Yes.
threw me a little bit. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about if that was discussed at all between you guys and the writers of like, should there be beef between these people? And what do we do? Like, can we improvise maybe little things here and there?
Totally. Yeah. And because there's so much footage, that I know specifically there's one part that like Kate and Steve, Team Skate,
Mhm.
like they would like beef with each other of going
Mhm.
like because they were like we're 100% like work wife, work husband
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. And so they would there's like you see like a blip of it once when Steve is trying to say he's like, what about paprika when we're coming up with a safe word
Yes.
and it ends up being
Yes.
porcupine? Because then that led to like a conflict resolution between them as well. And so there are all these moments and Amy and would just love to get under Kate's skin too, of just like in the best way. I'd be like, get off your phone. What are you doing on your phone? And like
Hmm.
so just like little things that I don't think you see them all, but like the opinions were strong of one another
Hmm.
and just it would help us get into character and help us create that world even more. But yeah, there wasn't like I think the beef was like the stolen hot sauce, the Taco Bell, like the
Right, of course.
almost like the narrative beats
Right.
were where the real stakes were. And I love that scene at the top of the hill with Erica Hernandez like screaming about Frank's red hot Frank's sauce, and he's like and so I think it was balanced out. Like I think when I say no to Kevin, it's probably the first time Amy's ever said no in her life.
Oh,
Like I
gee.
don't think she really beefs a lot with
Right. I
people.
didn't necessarily think that was something for
Right.
you to deal with, but just in
Yes.
general, especially, and to see how she would react to the people around her
Yes.
in that scenario. That's an interesting thought, though, that like she is maybe a bit more of a people pleaser than
Yeah.
anything else. And if that's, I mean, I don't know if you wanted to take that literally, like that's literally the first time she ever said no, but like just thinking about that idea of like, oh, yeah, if she's such a nice, she hugs everybody, she's like so like helpful to everybody, then that adds an extra layer of like, oh, that's actually kind of hard for her to do in a way that
Totally.
did you play different versions of that with, well, I mean, and not obviously not while they were filming because it's one take. We should probably
Right.
say that for people who might not
I
realize
know.
like you
Yeah.
can't
You don't
take
get a
things
reset.
back. Yeah, because it's Anthony has to believe it's all real. So how did you, I guess, work with um Jake and then Ryan who plays Kevin? I'm sorry, I know everybody by
Yes.
their real names. I forget character names all the time. So Ryan who plays Kevin on
Perfect. They
kind of
balance
like
each other out.
finding that line of like you don't want to hurt him, but you're not going to say yes.
Right. I think it helped so much with my character arc too, because, it in saying no to Ryan, and he's an incredible scene partner, and just like him looking in my eyeballs was like the greatest thing. I was like, thank you so much for being here, and um I think it helped with my arc knowing, oh, she's finally going to stand up, not for like stand up for herself, but like just really be true to herself and put
Right.
herself first, because that thought alone helped catapult me to be able to go up to Anthony after that, because I was really nervous to go like, I've done everything to make it seem like we're dating. That was the whole plan, anyways. And I still wanted to have a relationship with him, and he gave me awesome advice that didn't, there wasn't shown, but he was like, "Good for you. Like if that's not what it is that you want, he's like, you got to stand up for yourself, and you need to be true to yourself." And we talked about like vulnerability and how it's a superpower, and so that putting it in my mind of like, this is the first time that she's like, wait, hold on, this isn't what I want. And
Hmm.
to be able to kind of put herself in the driver's seat was really helpful for me to have like the very first seed with Anthony, to have like a closer relationship and have him help me too,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah, it makes total sense. It's also very nice. In my head, like obviously watching it, I say this all the time. I'm a very cynical person. Like in my head, I was like laughing immediately at the scenario, you know? And so I do want to take it back to my question about like the breaking on set and how you guys
yes,
handled, because I think it might have been Dan Levy who said this recently. Like he pointed out that like characters would naturally laugh at each other's actions. Like people do it all the time. I very rarely see it in scripted TV. And I know this show is not a sitcom the way that like on the Miss Pat show, Mary Lou Belli often like allows them to laugh at each other because that's the family dynamic. But this show is like there's a line. I keep saying line, but I do really feel like if you do too much of that, then maybe that even tips something over the edge. So,
totally.
what was your personal, how you handled it personally? If like you felt laughter coming on, were there times where you were like, I'm not going to allow it to come out. I'm going to step away, or I'm going to do what I would do like on a set where I can't do it because of I'm afraid of tipping something? And then how did you find moments where like maybe it's okay to, acknowledge that this is kind of a weird thing that's happening?
Totally. I think there's such a difference of like what would make Emily laugh versus Amy laugh,
Sure.
because one that comes to mind is that Ian Roberts, the Mount Everest.
Yes.
I mean, he's a killer of comedy. I mean, so epically funny, and that not Amy would be dying over. But it's a serious story, and it's a really like coming into his own and finding all like this giant hardship leading to this moment. It's just so wild, so wild that it would be so hard. So I would have like such a battle internally and just like sweating, just like trying not to laugh and biting my lip a lot, getting up for snacks if I
Okay.
had to, go into the bathroom,
Well,
like,
that's what I mean. Because
uh,
in a situation like this, it's not like just take the camera off me. It's like Anthony might turn around and then see me
yes,
laughing and be like, that's not who I thought you were.
totally. Yeah, because, you know, you never want it to look like you're making fun of someone, because these seminar teachers are
Right.
real, and
Well,
it's
that was the other thing. I was like, you're staring
yes.
at them for who knows how long. How are people?
And we didn't
Again, I was like,
see
Anthony,
them.
how do you not know who they are?
I know.
Sorry.
And because we didn't see them, these seminars either, like we're hearing them for the first time
Hmm.
too. And so just, I mean, it was so challenging to not laugh, but there were moments where we could laugh at each other. I think that levity was coming up too, or react with each other. And my Lanisa and Alex sat in front of me, and it was Warren, Stephanie, and then Rachel, and they would get really upset with me because I have this ability when I'm in character, I'll keep my face the same, but I'll laugh and let a little, like I'll go like just
Oh,
out,
so
and
they
just
can
to
hear
let like a
you.
little pressure out of the pressure cooker. And Rachel, who plays Claire, would before the Bones talent, she came up and she's like, "This is what it's going to be, and you cannot look at me," because her and I would just like we just get so tickled by each other and like break all the time with one another.
Hmm.
Um, but I think, when the cameras weren't on us and if maybe Anthony was doing something else, us just being able to let a little of that, like release the pressure valve a little bit just to like giggle.
Hmm.
I said it felt like a lot. It felt like a slumber party where the parents were just like, "Hey, go to bed," and then
Right.
we are like, mm-hmm, and you just do that like underlying giggle a lot.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah, but
It's
yeah, you get to laugh. You get to like have. I mean, you could see my face a lot, like furrowed brow, and I'm like, what? Like, so
But
because
a natural reaction that I think a
yes,
character would have regardless.
yeah,
I just feel like maybe this is more from an audience perspective. Like we're looking for that. We're looking for the moments where someone's breaking you and like how are you handling it? Because we
hmm
know what is normally allowed and not allowed. But I mean, I do, you could tell me, I feel like your stage training probably also helps with that. Like you probably can't really break on stage with the groundlings either.
no, totally, yes, yeah, you can't really break, and also I think it was just finding out, going like, okay, what is funny here? Is it like myself or is it the character finding it funny? But I mean, Rob Lathan, who plays other Anthony, we would like forget that he was behind us in the group interview. And then he would just throw a dart out of nowhere of like, I love applesauce. That is everyone fully breaking character and like laughing at it. And
But
then, and then,
that's okay, I think, right? Because it's like
yes,
random. You would laugh at that. Like, what is that? Why
totally.
are you saying that?
Yes, totally. And but like I'd be like, oh my God, he's still there. Yeah. So just little moments that kind of you couldn't control that you
Right.
would break a little. Anytime you see me hold like a notepad up, it's
Hmm.
me laughing behind it. Jake would tell me that he's like, I would burn like 3 cameras on you because he'd be like, cut to Amy. Cause I would just be like trying so hard and
Right.
laugh, like tears running down my face.
And you mentioned having him in your ear, like physically, you guys were wearing something. Can you
Yes.
describe, like, the ones that I'm sure a lot of us think about when we hear the term earwig, like, they're very noticeable. But on a show like this, they can't be. So, can you kind of describe what it looked like or like, and how small it was? And I mean, I know obviously no one found it on you, but
Right.
that to me sounds kind of crazy.
It still was really difficult to navigate, and also like while we're talking right now, Jake could be saying, like, move, can you move her to the
That
left?
would be very mean if he
Mention,
was doing this to me.
can you
I'm not
imagine?
involved in this show. I know he does it to Ronald and
Let's
Anthony
bring
all
Jake
the
in.
time. But unless he wants to take my idea for season 3, I don't want this.
Ooh, I want to
I
hear
said it
this
to
image.
Sonia. I said it to Sonia at the
Yes.
end of season 1. I was like, because people are hyper aware, I
Yep.
feel like season 3, or at the time I said it for season 2, but I was like, it should just be meta. It should just be like you hire some kid to be a PA on a fake film set because you always hear about
Yes.
crazy Hollywood behavior. And then if he does recognize somebody, it's explained. And then like
Yeah.
you're covering some bases. And hopefully you're also kind of showing that like some of the stuff that is crazy in Hollywood, isn't as bad as we think.
Right. Right.
Maybe, I
Right.
don't
It's a
know.
love letter to the sets. Yes.
Maybe. I don't know
That's
how that
pretty
would turn out.
great.
It depends on who you got, but so far
Totally.
they've been
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. That's a
Anyway.
really great idea. But the earwig, so it's like it was kind of shaped like the inside of your ear, and then it had like a little antenna on it. And so you would have to put it in and then you'd circle it. Like you like turn it in so
Mhm.
it would like fit the shape of your ear. But that's why Lanisa, Erica, myself, and Stephanie never had our hair up. Because even like on
Yeah.
those hot hiking days,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, my hair's down. I have so much hair. And so because so they could hide it. And then Alex had one, and then Doug had one, Jerry had one, but it was his hearing aid
Right.
that we would say
Okay.
was his hearing aid. And then Ryan's was so small. Ryan's had to like be put in with tweezers and taken out with tweezers because they were in such tight quarters. So like in the car. Um,
Yes.
but every day when Anthony would go on his run and we'd have our production meeting in the morning, we would have to do earwig tests where we had someone come next to us and they would talk in our ear and see if they could hear because you could hear the earwig if it was too loud.
That's the other thing. Yeah, I was wondering because I was like, even if you faked it with like I'm wearing a fake AirPod, like I can always
Yep,
hear what the person sitting next to me is listening to.
totally. Yeah, you had to make it. And some of those seminars were really quiet, and Erica and I were in charge of in the back, like giving hand signals to the seminar teacher of like, wrap it up or like bring it down, or you can go further. Let's see what you can do. And so you could hear those things. So they had to be at a
Yeah.
minimal volume. And then we all had hand signals. So Jake would come on and go like, can the ladies hear me? And all of us would scratch our heads. So it looked like we all just had really itchy heads. So, and so like all of a sudden you just be in a room and like see like 6 hands go up scratching their heads. And then if we needed something, we would tap our mics and go find a mirror and like that would talk to them. But there was this one, I mean, I still don't know where all the cameras were because I needed to tell them something. Like I think I could hear someone's earwig or something. So I went up to a mirror and I was like, Jake, I was like, we can hear. And Lanisa came out to me and she was like, Amy, that is just a mirror. I was like, like talking to a mirror like
I mean, you tried, you know,
yeah, I
don't know
tried.
what you're going to do. And now it's like,
Right.
because I hear the opposite. Like, I remember when Ronald in season one, after he had had his experience, he talked a lot about like the paranoia of like, now he thinks, like, is there a camera
Sure.
behind that mirror? And I didn't think about it from your guys' perspective of like, you're used to being on camera, you're used to seeing them, but you're used to being on camera. So I didn't think it would be that way for you. But do you feel now coming off that show, like, do you look at things differently? Are you more aware of your surroundings and like who might be watching you or, you know, just how you have to carry yourself in a certain way?
I think so. There was definitely like phantom earwig noises. Like
Mm.
I would text Jake and I'm like, Jake, I still like hear you in my ear. I'm like, and you're not there. So there were those moments. And I think more of just like wonder, I guess I could say, like when I went to this one restaurant with my friends afterwards and they had like mirrors lining, the booth. And I was like, it's so easy. Like that could be this, just kind of looking at my surroundings more with like a fascination of like, whoa, they really thought of everything.
Mm.
And, just knowing like, oh, all of these little things all had all a plan, and like making like our interviews, they would call them on the fly interviews of like us being interviewed by the yurt, but they'd be fake
Right.
and we would just be kind of talking, but in character, but just so that Anthony could come out of his cabin and go, oh, great, the doc crew's here. They're miking people up.
Right.
So everything was on purpose. So there was a gift in us in the aftermath because we knew those
Right.
things, but just looking at things and going, yeah, you can put a camera there. You can put a camera there. You can put a camera there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you've been in comedy for a while. It feels like that's always maybe what you wanted to do as an actor, because I usually start these interviews with the past pop culture, but we didn't do that
Great.
this time. Because I was like, with my intro, there's no good way to segue in and out. So we'll just kind of flip it. But
I love it.
I am, so you picked a movie for your past pop culture influence, Dumb and Dumber, which I think kind of explains a lot of the comedic influence and the comedic style that you want to do. But I heard that you said that one of the reasons you love this movie is because it was like one of the first times you made your cousins laugh. So it felt to
Yes.
me like it was double. It was not just I'm a fan of this movie, but it was also like it was maybe the start of my career in a strange, or not strange, but unlikely way. So can you
Yes.
take us back to like little Emily? I'm assuming you were too young to see it in theaters when it came out because it came out in 1994 and
Yes.
you're younger than me. So,
I was doing the math
okay.
and I was like, oh, I would have been 7. I saw it like peeking around a wall at my
Okay.
house. Yes, the
That's my
first time.
question. If you could set this up by talking a little bit about like the first time you remember seeing it and what it was that you attached to in that first viewing, and we'll go from there.
So I grew up in a very big Italian family. Everyone lives 12 minutes from each other. My parents lived the furthest away because they were 10 minutes away from everyone versus like 3.
Sure.
And so we would always have really big, like, holiday meals and everything. And so my 2 cousins, Tony and Richie, and Tony's no longer with us. And he is like just such a North Star of just integral in my
Mhm.
life. And they would always be quoting these things at dinners and quoting movies. And I mean, this is, it has a good ending, I promise. But because my family's all from a very small town, some of my first memories are at like funeral dinners or
Oh,
like
sure.
calling out, like calling hour dinners. Like, and and I just remember Tony and Richie being able to make that room laugh after such a hard day. And I think that is like the most beautiful thing, that you can laugh in sadness and go, oh, it's okay to heal. And this is kind of how we do it. And to be able to bring light in a dark moment is a full gift. And so they would be quoting these movies, and I would ask my sisters, I'm like, what is that movie? Or I'd ask their sister Mandy, who I'm close with too. And I said, what are they quoting? And she was like, they're quoting Dumb and Dumber. And I was like, oh, great. And then my oldest sisters, Missy and Molly, I'm the youngest, they were watching it. And I remember I like snuck down in my nightgown. And I was like, and just like our front room was our TV room. And I like was off to the side, and I just was listening for the longest time without watching. And then my mom caught me. She was like, you can't watch that. That's too old for you. And I was like, it's so funny. And so I want to say it was probably 13, because I remember I had a pretty severe bowl cut, and that's around the time I had that. So, I mean, I probably looked like Lloyd too. So I was like, that's me.
Well, the reason that I always ask is because I also do think that like sometimes the age you see something, and that's why it becomes so important to you, because you're impressionable at a certain age, but also like you're trying to figure out who you are and what you want, and then that thing comes along and it becomes important to different sides of the journey. But hearing you say 13 was, I will be honest, I thought you were going to say you were a little younger, only because you
Maybe
were
I
saying
was.
that you weren't supposed to see it and that you were mostly just listening to it. Because I do think if you listen to a movie like this, I mean, listen, for people who don't know what this movie is, I mean, honestly, you should have Google open right now. I'm not gonna
Right.
really, I don't tend to summarize, and I think maybe that's why some people get upset because they're like, what are you even talking about? I'm like,
Oh,
you have Google, it's fine. But I mean,
yes.
it's also like a 30-year-old movie. So
Yes.
but I also do feel like listening to this movie and hearing those jokes and hearing the like comedy between Jim Carrey and I'm sorry, but Jeff Daniels, who like you would never know based on his career today. This is something he did.
Truly.
Um,
Yes.
it's very different from watching it at a young age because I will say that I watched this when it did come out and I was about 10 and it was not the first Jim Carrey movie that came out, but it was the first Jim Carrey
Right.
movie that I feel like I remember being like, "Oh, that's Jim Carrey, that's what he does." But the movie's dark. And I
Yeah.
feel like for me, what imprinted was like, oh, I like this idea of there can be violence, but it can be funny. And so now
Hmm.
all the comedy I love has murder in it. But that's a very different experience, I imagine. Like, did you even notice, like, how much did you really know, like, what this movie was about versus, like, I'm able to find the punchline and I'm able to find the joke and I'm able to find, like, the thing that's gonna withstand if I repeat it without that visual punch.
Right. I think because, I mean, even just like the funeral stuff is dark for me, like, and
That's
so like,
fair.
but finding comedy in those moments, is what's helpful. And I think I had to have been younger than 13. I'm guessing I was probably like 10-ish, something. I'm trying to figure out when that bowl cut
I
happened.
mean, it's okay
Uh,
if you don't have the exact, but it was just
right,
in my
right.
head, I went, oh,
But
that's really interesting
right,
because you're also, maybe your sense of comedy is also a little bit more developed. And so, like,
mhm.
you're liking it because you already know what you like versus this is becoming the type of comedy you are starting to like from this is your first entrance.
Right. And I also was watching it, and I was like almost studying it to go, where are the lines that they're quoting?
Mm,
So I wasn't necessarily like tracking plot, I guess, but I was like, oh, that's what they're saying. There you go. There you go. There, like when they're passing out the IOUs or the money to everyone. And I was like, oh, that's why. Oh, and then you can use this in a life moment, and like,
yes.
so I was kind of trying to figure out, oh, that quote, now you can, so you're saying there's a chance, all those things. So then be able to put into real life, and then someone go, oh, I love that movie, and then I think once I watched it, I was just obsessed with it because it is going back to like heightened earnestness.
Right.
They mean every single thing that they're saying. Like, they don't find humor in it. They are so so grounded just believe everything they're saying. And I think when you do that, you can kind of get away with murder.
Yes. Do you remember the specific thing that made your cousins laugh that you pulled out that you were like, "Oh, this is my time."
I believe it was, we were like, because I always set the table for the dinners, and as I was handing out plates, I think I was doing the money thing. I'm going, there you go, there you go, there you go. And they were like, oh, and I made them laugh hard. And then that gave me confidence to go like, oh, maybe I can just be funny and not quote a movie. And so, because I was so much younger than them too, and I'm probably at least 20 some years younger than them. And so I just they were just the coolest. And I was like, I just want to make them laugh. And trying to remember the name. If we would forget anything in our family, we'd go Slippy, Slappy, Swimmy, Swimmy, Samsonite. I was way off. And like my mom and dad were just out here. My mom and I said that because she has the hardest time remembering certain things. And she's like, it starts with an R and then it'll start with like an M. And so we're like, I was way off. So that moment and then those two moments really stick out for me.
I mean, hearing you talk about like the age difference too, I do feel like part of it might also be like, oh, now they know you can hang, right? Like,
Yes.
because you're so much. I mean, I had one older cousin, and it was a lot of that. It was like
Mm-hmm.
I kind of looked up to her, but I didn't see her enough to really know like what she was interested in to try to win her over the way that you clearly did. But it was
Yeah.
also that idea of like, I don't want you to see me as a baby. And it feels like
Yeah.
that comedy is a great uniter in that way, and not just in that specific age gap way, but just a great uniter of people in general. Do you feel like this, having that experience with this movie and your cousins, like, did that expand into like other, were you then like the kid that would quote a lot of different comedies? Like, how did this, I guess, evolve with your own comedy style over time?
I think it was that I always just trying to like not be the kid because I am one of the youngest cousins in our family too. And then you said it perfectly, of like, oh, she can hang, oh, she's cool. Yeah, invite Emmy over. She'll split a Taco Bell party box with us. And so, yeah. And so that did lead to, oh, I think this is funny. Oh, now and Christmas Vacation came into the mix.
Sure.
Like, and so that came into the mix, and then SNL came into the mix of just tracking those things and then going, oh, I find this funny without being told this is funny now, which I think is huge, and throughout Groundlings too, of just trying to find your comedic voice and not try to replicate someone's and going, oh no, even when I
Yeah.
teach and direct over there as well.
Yeah.
And when I direct, I'm like, we don't need another Emily. Like we don't need another blank. I want to know what makes you special. And so I think finding your comedic voice, of course it's shaped by the nature around you, but then being able to go like, oh, that like what makes you laugh when you're alone, I think is really, really important.
It's interesting because I mean SNL is a bit broader, but Dumb and Dumber and Christmas Vacation both read to me at the time as more like male humor, which I know is an
Mm-hmm.
unfair thing. Like we try not to gender
No.
things anymore the way that we did, but like at the time we were still gendering things. And so it felt, and it makes sense to hear you talk about like, oh, that ingratiated you with older male cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you started to think about at any point when you were younger in terms of like, who are the female comedians? Who are the female actors that I'm watching in comedy movies? Did that matter to you?
In hindsight, yes. And I do remember in like probably like middle school or early days in high school, if it wasn't middle school, I'd be like, wait, why doesn't the chick get to do something fun?
Hmm.
I'm like, wait, why is she the voice of reason? And so I think that comes into play with my comedy a lot and what I write, and of going like, oh no, I can also be a mess, and I can be the one that has the punch line or the blackout line. And because that is true, whether because I'm sure if we looked at stats, I'm sure
Wow.
more ticket sales. But yes, I do remember going like, wait a minute, And I'm like, why can't she say something stupid, or funny, and or just instead of going like, calm down.
Right.
So yeah. And yeah, so I
No,
think
I was gonna
that
say,
definitely was clear in my brain.
yeah, because I was gonna say like the first Jim Carrey movie I ever saw was Ace Ventura, but it was because I was a fan of
Yes.
Courtney Cox from Friends. And
Yes.
I was like, and like to be fair, I think the movie came out before Friends started. I believe it came out in February
Hmm.
'94, and Friends obviously started September of '94, but I hadn't seen Ace Ventura in theaters. I saw it after. So,
Yes.
but it was and it was not something I was thinking about when I was 10. Was like,
Of
why is she
course.
not getting all the jokes and stuff? But certainly like looking back on it, I'm like, oh, it was fine for what it was at the time, but we wouldn't do that now. And
Right.
even I'm wondering from even the jokes that you were quoting, did you feel like as you were quoting them, were you being treated differently because they were like more quote male jokes? Did people like even from your
Hmm.
business being like, oh, she can hang, did you feel like that was like not that you were thinking about gender at age 10 or 13,
Right.
but did you
Right.
feel like there was something there that you were connecting to that was like, oh, they wouldn't have done that with me if I asked them to, play Barbies or whatever?
Right. I that's so curious to me. I wonder if what was in the driver's seat of my mind was the age difference, if anything. Like at that point of going like, why do I want to hang out with a 10-year-old? And
Sure.
so I think that was in the moment was probably more of like, I gotta prove that I can hang out with the older cousins. Like I can go to the older table. I think that was more of that gap I was trying to jump over versus now knowing, oh, it's this gender thing, like
Yeah.
that playing to that audience,
Yeah.
so that, yeah.
And we haven't really talked about like the plot because I know you were like I was more about certain lines of this movie, but does anything in the plot stick out to you as something that you were really interested in and or like amused by at the time? Like the
Um,
actual story, the actual narrative of this road trip buddy comedy, not like broader, but also more specific, I guess, than some of these. Like what, because a lot of the one-liners that you were pointing out, like they are easily quotable in daily life because they're not specific to the plot. They're like funny little
right.
things that they're like isms that these characters have.
I think broader strokes of the plot narrative would be like such a fun friend road trip, and like them just saying yes to so many things and being so ignorant to like what could happen. And so I think that really was a big thing. And then just like, I'm sure at 10, I was like, love, cool. And they were like, we're going to find this girl that we love so much. And so,
Who we don't know is married because we weren't
right,
paying attention. Yeah.
exactly. Yes. And so I think uh, it's almost, I mean, those types of comedies were so fun of just going, oh, I forget that there's like a story here because I'm just
Sure.
laughing at so many things. Like the skis in the gas station that make you feel like it's gonna go down one road and then it just like
Right.
pulls the carpet out, which I think is so fun of going like, well, see you later. And so yeah, the road trip of it all was so fun because also, and maybe I'm just kind of putting this together now, like we didn't take a ton of vacations. Like we didn't ever really went on vacations
Mhm.
as growing up. And because we were essentially just always going to like swim tournaments and soccer tournaments and all these different things. So
Right.
those were our like road trips. But I loved going on road trips with my family too. And we would like barely pull out of the driveway and someone would already be opening the cooler for a sandwich, like, and so just like, I think that has a
Yeah.
really fun, I'm just now putting that together and going like, oh, it's very fun to go on an adventure as well.
And it also feels like to me, I don't, it felt like the fact that the humor in this movie is not malicious. Like, yes, there are bad guys that are chasing Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels' character because they're trying to return this. I guess I will talk about the plot for a minute. So anyone who didn't Google can stop being mad at me. But like, they're
Yes.
trying to return this briefcase that has ransom money in it. They don't know it has ransom money in it, but there are these guys that are trying to track them down for it. Um, and those guys are obviously not good guys, and they're going to do things that are bad if they catch the characters. But in order to kind of give them the slip, the things that Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels characters do are like more like pranks. Like they put chili peppers in a burger, which has a bad action on that character because he has a stomach ulcer, but like they don't know that. They're just putting peppers in the burger, which is like, oh, I'm gonna like make him have to drink more water. Like it was childish in a way that felt like it was intentionally speaking to a younger audience and saying like,
Yes.
we are welcoming you in. Did you care about the
Yes.
pranks at all? Were you a kid who pranked? That's where I was going
I
in that very long setup. It's not a good
loved
question
it.
for that very long setup, but
No, I loved it. I'm here for every part of it. I I mean, I would definitely like prank call with my friends and but I don't know if I was always so worried about getting in trouble. And so I don't think I was probably a big prankster growing up. Like we did, like we like toilet paper at houses, like of our soccer team and things like that. And one time we zip tied all the lockers closed. Don't I mean I guess I was a prankster, but like
yeah,
immediately like if
that's
I
a big deal. I mean,
that's a
I
big
would
deal.
say that that's above peppers, but below the laxatives in this movie. Just
that's
in the
that's
middle.
our yeah,
I
that's
don't
our
know what I'm doing with
gauge.
my hands, but in the
Yeah.
middle.
But I would also it was coupled by an incredibly guilty conscience. Like so if I would do anything, I would like wake my mom up and be like, hey, I toilet papered this person's
Oh
house. Like and
no.
immediately say what I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
Mhm.
because I did think that like some people's humor comes out of that experience. It sounds like maybe not so much because you were telling
No.
on yourself, but that's
I
okay.
was yeah,
Yeah.
telling on myself a lot.
Okay.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
I do want to fast forward a little bit to like then when you're older and you are actively pursuing comedy. First of all, how much do you, in the early days of both Groundlings and acting and pursuing this as a career, how much are you still kind of thinking about your influences and either trying to emulate something or trying to say, well, that's already been done. Now I need to top it.
I think it's all in this crock pot of creativity. There's so many things that are like slow cooking that are from my childhood that made me laugh, that helped shape me. And while also going, and what do I think of them? And I love character work because I love tapping into other people's point of views and how they see the world. And so I think it's really helpful when I ask myself that too, of like, what am I laughing at?
Right?
What tickles me? And I think especially teaching at Groundlings too, it's so important to go. I love when we get to the level where people start bringing in characters and creating characters because I get to go like, oh, I get to learn about you and I get to learn about what your personal point of view of funny is, and while seeing what your inspirations are. And
Mhm.
so I think it's a bit of both, and also the more you know, the more you're aware of as well. And so I think your wheelhouse is always changing and like the goalpost is always moving. And just I think where you are at the moment, you have to be really true to yourself. Like you can't sit down and go, let's write something that's so like, the next big hit, or like let's reinvent the wheel,
Right.
but just going like, my favorite writing meetings are when we're talking like this made me laugh this week, and then we write it, or taking something from real life and then
Mhm.
we put it to paper. And those moments I think are really because they're baked in truth,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
So I kind of want to combine a few things you just said, and
Please.
I might put you on the spot with this, but I know you said we don't want to, redo something or reinvent the wheel. But hearing you talk about like the things that you also just said, what made me laugh this week, sometimes it's something that actually happened. If you were to do a remake of Dumb and
Oh,
Dumber and you were going to play one of the characters, A, who would you want to play opposite you? B, what is the thing that would make you laugh in that kind of today road trip scenario? Or maybe it's not even a road trip. Maybe it's just a buddy comedy, but like, what is the thing that would work for you today?
oh my gosh, I love this question. Okay. Well, one of my very best friends is Edie Patterson, and she
Hmm.
has been a North Star of comedic genius for so long. So to just the idea of getting to spend months with her to make a movie, that sounds great. And her and I really make each other laugh
Yeah.
pretty hard. And from the moment we started to work together, it was very, very special to be able to write with her and perform with her. And so I'm cast in Edie.
Great.
And so and I think What would make me laugh? I do think like getting into accidental hijinks and trying to get out of it. I think just we also Edie and I like nerd out on improv all the time too.
Yeah.
And it's that thing of like, oh no, just like honestly trying to do a good job or like fix something like you were saying, like with the peppers, they tried to fix it. They were like, oh shoot,
Yeah,
shoot, and
yeah.
like, fix it, but it was rat poison. And so just like fanning the flames of that, I'd have to think of a whole plot. But that to me, I'm like, us just on a road trip together. Are you kidding me? That sounds like a dream.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then I want to flip the question a little bit in a sense of that's making you laugh. If you were, when you were working on Jury Duty Company Retreat, were you thinking about the things that made Amy laugh? And like, how did that affect how you thought of her as like a real person in the world? And also maybe how you built out some of those things that we talked about earlier in terms of the character stuff that you then delivered in dialogue?
I think that very small things would make Amy laugh. Like she just found joy in so many small moments. There's something you don't see of when we were making a vision board. We had a vision
Oh
board making
yeah, we
class
saw we
seminar.
saw a little bit of it.
Yes. And but when we ran in the room, the tables are set up in a square, and I saw a Taylor Swift magazine and I booked it so fast over there, that my laces got caught around each other. And I mean, they said they like saw me fly out of frame and I just wiped out. And so like not Amy was like, oh my gosh,
Right.
ridiculous. But then also because Amy is a very positive light. Like she was laughing at herself and she's like, I just get so excited about that, and so I could spin it. But there's moments where I just feel like there's such a little kid trapped in Amy and such innocence that she would laugh at things that would, I don't know, maybe that you go like, oh, okay, we get it. And so it was very fun to be able to kind of make my world small so that
Mm.
other things would make me laugh. Like every single morning, like when kids dress themselves and they
Hmm.
like come down, they're like, check me out. And it's insane. Like that's essentially how I would dress for Amy. Like I'd go like, what patterns do I have today? And I would just like throw on a bunch of colors and I would wait for I could hear Erica leave her cabin and I'd open it up and she'd be like, oh my God, no.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So I think just that joy.
I don't, maybe this says more about me, but I don't think anything Amy wore was too crazy.
I don't
It
think so
certainly wasn't
either.
that brace that was buzzing that I was like, what? How are we
Isn't
not
that
talking more about
so
that?
funny? I know. And that's a real Erica Hernandez purchase. She got
Oh
spotted
I'm not
on
judging
Instagram.
her
Oh
for
no, I
wearing
know.
it.
It's
I'm judging
just
for
this.
not talking about it. Like I feel like it was a quiet killer. Like every time I'd hear the buzz, I would laugh and nobody would
Same.
respond, and so I would laugh a little harder because I'm like, you're just also used to this. That's
I
crazy.
know. I know. Yeah, just constant. And even like in the office, she had a standing treadmill. And so I would just
Hmm.
hear her hitting the
Hmm.
wall because she would fall all the
Oh,
time. She would just like hit the wall. And I'm like, I would just be crying, laughing in my office.
yeah.
But yeah, that I think it's the joy. I think that Amy sees the world with just like such a joy filter
Yeah.
that she could laugh at things much more easily, I think.
Yeah. But I will say, I mean, I'm going to flip this question around. It's going to sound like it's about Amy. It's not. So
Right.
Amy had the bucket list we already talked about a little bit, and there were some things on it that were like a little bit wild, and then some things on it that were very simple. Did that inspire you to work on your bucket list? And if so, how much of your bucket list is like comedy stuff you want to do versus life stuff you want to do?
That's great. I think it's a combo. And I think there's things on my own bucket list from like rescuing more dogs and helping rescues to like to I don't going to Australia again. Like there's such a spectrum of things that I want to do. And I do think the more you live, the more full your life is and experience and life experiences of being able to write different sketches or
Mhm.
scripts. And I do want to direct one day. I want to continue to write and work with my friends always. I mean, my goal is to always be a part of an ensemble where there's people that are better than me that make me better. And I think so. I think they can go hand in hand. There's obviously like career specific
Sure.
ones of like, I want to write a feature, I want to direct. But then also they can cross over with blurred lines of like, I want to be with my friends. I want to be with people that are better than me. And just constantly getting better. And then also in just rescuing so many dogs.
Well, I think what you said makes a lot of sense because, first of all, if you don't, everyone always talks about this, but like if you don't have that life experience, it's, I think, a lot harder to play not any, but like a lot of characters. Like it's easy to play someone who's like you, but most characters won't be like you. So
Right.
be able, if whether you're writing the character or you're getting it from somebody else, like to be able to tap into something that you've had tangential experience in, I think is super helpful. But it does
Totally.
also make me wonder, like, then what was most helpful for finding Amy? Because she doesn't sound like you
No,
that
no,
much.
yeah.
And I know you
it,
talked earlier about like the clothes and stuff, but like just even in that initial, like, I want to go for this job, I'm gonna just say it again. Like I'm still like I don't know. I think I would be a little bit like, should I go for this job where I'm supposed to pretend like nobody knows who I am? Like that's me personally, but like beyond that, the character herself.
there's so much of myself in the character of Amy that you don't see as well.
Mhm.
That every single day I personally made it a point to tell Anthony something real about my life, like
Okay.
whether it be about my nieces or my dog, or my parents are I made it that she was from Ohio and just so I didn't mess up.
Sure.
So,
I was gonna say
um,
sometimes I feel like that's just a necessity.
yes, truly. I'm like, there's enough things we got to keep track of. And so I there are parts of Amy that I would like strive to be like. I'm like to see the greatness in everyone and to be like I do think like I am such a cheerleader of people as well. And so there's shades of
Mm,
me in her, but making sure that like the things I would touch on that would mean something, those were real. And that's because I mean I'm still in contact. We're all still in contact with Anthony. He's such an unconditionally kind light. And so those sharing those moments, they were very real. There was just like
right.
turn the dial up a little bit on her insanity.
But on the page initially, was there anything that you felt like, oh yeah, there's a little bit of me in that?
I I mean, I guess I present as bubbly, but I do like my solitude.
Okay.
So I do like I there are like I can be bubbly and things, but I I do like to just like chill and hang. And so I think I think what attracted me the most was getting to play a character like that. That's why I
Mm,
love the Groundlings so much because we
hmm.
improvise from a character's point of view.
Yeah.
I'm like improvising as myself. I don't know. And so I think that's what attracted me the most was like, oh, I could have so much fun with this character. And I know people like her. And so to be able to tap into that. And then I think on the back end going, oh, okay, and I can tie this into my real life. I
Mhm.
can do this. Yeah, just being able to really play and sink my teeth into a character was
Yeah.
super attractive to me.
Nice. All right. Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much for coming on.
that was so
This was
fast.
so okay, good. I'm glad you feel that way because most time I'm
Great.
like nervous someone's going to cut me off. So I
No.
appreciate that. And this was great. Again, for anybody who has not seen Jury Duty Company Retreat, that's second season, but both seasons are available on Prime Video. And I like to tell you where to find everything. So I will also tell you that Dumb and Dumber is available not to stream, but to buy or rent. So you can get that again on Prime Video, Apple TV. There's a couple of options for that. And we are weekly here at Made Possible by Pop Culture, so be sure to come back next week for an all new episode.